How to use loop methodology in eFlow. I will try to explain you with an example. Let's assume we have a meeting process and we give tasks to someone according to the actions, the decisions that has been taken in the meeting. So we will assign tasks to some users from the organization. And it will require a sub-process. So the main process will be a meeting process and the sub-process will be a to-do process, and meeting process will trigger the to-do process. Let's start with the meeting process. It will be the main process. So for a meeting process, what do I need? First, let's start with the data elements, the meeting date, and the meeting number. It will be numeric. And also maybe subject of meeting. So let's set all these meeting date, meeting number, subject of meeting data elements with calculate tool. For the date, set date with meeting date, and let's use the now function to calculate the date of meeting. Now function will set the date as today, and let's also set meeting number, and let's use the initiator ID function for that. It will just give us a unique number for this meeting process. All right, and also I want to develop a table for according to the decisions that has been taken in the meeting, and I want to create a table for that. So list of actions, and it will be a line item table. And for this table, let's edit the table. What I will need is maybe 3 columns. The first column will be task, the second will be due date, and the third will be person in charge of this task. Task will be alphanumeric, due date will be date format, and person in charge, let's get the list of the people from our database. Let's make it pop-up select, and let's go to our data source, eFlow data source. So in my SQL Management Studio, I already developed a query for that. I want to get the user ID and the first name of the people in my organization. So I copy this query. I just paste here, and this will select the user ID and the first name of the people from SecUsers table. And I want to also calculate the number of rows, because there may be more than one task to be assigned. Let's say number of rows count, and I want to use a column for that. All right, that's fine. So First, let's go to my task form and let's see what I want to show. Meeting date will be read only, meeting number as well. Let's make the subject of meeting mandatory as well as the list of actions. So for this task, let's save it and let's name it as meeting process to be seen at the user interface. Save it and activate it. So in eFlow, I will see this task like this: meeting date, meeting number, subject of meeting, and the line. Line will be the table, task, due date, and person in charge. Let's go to our designer and let's develop two more data elements. First is number of rows. I will get the number of rows from the table and I make it numeric. I will use it, and I want to also develop a loop data element because I want to assign all the tasks in a row after the meeting to the people who are in charge. I'll show you how to do it. First, let's calculate the number of arrows, and let's use the calculate tool for that. And let the name of the button be submit. And I want to get the number of rows in the table. So I want to just calculate this element. For that, I have a formula. I have this formula get line item row count, but which table? It's our list of actions table. Okay, now this function will calculate the number of rows in my list of actions table. Just after that, I want to use a decision tool, and I want to say that I want to continue the process when loop is smaller than the number of rows. I'll explain you later. First, let's design our process and let's write the description. Loop smaller than number of rows. So if the loop is smaller than number of rows, then process will continue. Now I want to calculate the task, the person in charge, and the due date from the table. In order to calculate that, let's first develop as data elements task as string and due date in date format, and also person in charge. This person will change each time, so I make it dynamically assignment. And I get my calculate tool and I get task for my task data element, and I use a formula for that. To get data from the table, I use get line item data formula, and the table will be the list of actions. The row, let's see, the row is 0 and the column is 0 for that. So 0 row as well as the column. So I get the task with this tool. I copy it, I paste it, and this time I want to get the due date. For due date, let's select due date data element. This time the row will be 0 again, but the column will be not 0 but 1. Okay, let's make the column 1 for due date, and let's also copy and paste it, and this time let's get the person in charge from the table. Let's select the calculated data element, and this time the column will be 2, as you see, 0, 1, 2. Okay, that's fine. So with these functions, until the loop is smaller than number of rows, the process will continue, and it will first get the task and the due date and then the person in charge. After this step, I will use split tool in order to split this process, and let's get all these a little bit down. When I split this process, I now may use my loop tool. So in order to calculate the loop tool, it has to be dynamic. So let's set loop as loop plus, because I want it to be dynamic for each row, and I also just want to trigger a sub process, so I'll get the sub process as well. So from this step I will split the process into two. I will use the loop tool to just continue the process until the loop is not smaller than number of arrows, so it will require each task to be assigned triggered at the sub process. And just after that, let's terminate the process. All right, so now we have to also create a sub process for that, and it will be a to-do process. Let's start to design our to-do process. So at the to-do process, I want to start it manually. Let's get the task form, and let's then just terminate the process. Very simple. So at this form, I just want to show the data elements who is person in charge, which will be dynamic, as assignment the due date with date format and also the task. It will be string. And at this task form, I want to assign it to person in charge dynamically. So what I want to show on this task form is person in charge read only, due date read only, and the task. Let's see the task first, then the person in charge, then the due date. Okay, that's fine. So I now save this process and I activate it, but I forgot something. I don't want this process to be active. I don't want it to be started manually by the users. I want it only to be triggered by the meeting process. So I won't click this active button and I again save it and activate it. So I won't be able to see this process at the user interface at eFlow. It will be only triggered by the meeting process from here. So in my main process, the meeting process, I want these calculations all be dynamic. What I have to do is I will just set the row dynamic and it's with the loop. So for each task, for each row, the loop will continue, will get the data from list of actions table for task as well as for due date and also for the person in charge. I will just use the loop for the row column for the row. Okay, I save it too. Now let's trigger the sub process when I split the process into two, and let's go to sub process. So the process that I want to trigger is the to-do process. For that, I save my main process, the meeting process. I activate it. Now I am able to see all the processes. For to-do process, I just choose the to-do process and I start matching the data. So at the to-do process, I want to show the task and I match it with task here. The due date I match with due date, and person in charge with person in charge. I just match all this data. So when I trigger that process, the sub process will get data from the meeting process. At to do process, let's say to do process, but it doesn't matter, so it will, because it will not be active in the user interface. But anyway, okay, so the process is ready. So at the meeting process, when we take some decisions, if we want to get actions, we will assign each task to a user from the organization, and with a sub process, a to-do process will be triggered automatically. So let's just save my process and activate it, and then let's try it in the user interface. I go to my user interface, I start a new process. So new process, the meeting date is set, the meeting number as well. Subject of meeting, let's say executives committee meeting, and the list of actions is action 1. I want it to be finished until 22nd of May, and the person in charge for this task is Harun. And let's take action 2. It can be anything, just an example. And due date for that is 29th of May. And the person in charge for this is Chris. And the action 3 is I set the due date for that, and it will be assigned to Merve from my organization. So I have 3 actions, 3 rows. I'll assign this to 3 different people from the organization. So it will trigger 3 processes for these people who are in charge. I submit it. All the calculations are done, and you see the first action is assigned to Harun, Chris, and Merve. So eventually you can check from here. To-do process is assigned to Merve, and when Merve works on this process, she knows that she has to do this action. She is the person in charge, and due date is 28th of May. The same for Chris. This is the due date, this is the person in charge, and this is the action button. When he finishes the process, he will just say cancel, and the process will end. So this is the way how we use loop methodology in eFlow.